Hi, I'm Derek Fredrickson. Welcome to the COO Solution Podcast, the show for business owners and visionary leaders who want to scale with clarity, confidence, and the right support. For over 16 years, I've been in the trenches as a fractional COO, Chief Operating Officer, helping entrepreneurs align their teams, streamline operations, and remove bottlenecks that slow growth. I understand the challenges, feeling overwhelmed, stretched too thin, or uncertain about how to scale without burning out. I've helped business owners move from chaos to clarity, creating businesses that run smoothly and grow and scale. Each week, I'll bring you real-world insights, proven strategies, and practical solutions to help you step into your highest role as a leader. Whether it's optimizing your team, strengthening accountability, or building the right systems for growth, this podcast is here to support you in scaling smarter. So if you're ready to create a business that thrives without requiring more of you, let's get started. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you said yes to something in your business, even though a part of you deep down already knew it probably wasn't the right call? Maybe it was agreeing to take on a new project that sounded exciting but wasn't fully thought through. Perhaps it was accommodating another client request that stretched your team too thin, or maybe it was just one more internal meeting, one more approval, one more decision that landed on your desk when you were already at capacity. And in the moment, saying yes felt like the responsible thing to do. It felt supportive. It felt like leadership. You probably told yourself, this is just part of running a business. But then later, sometimes even that same day, you felt the cost of it. Your calendar tightened even more. Your energy dropped, and that familiar, quiet frustration showed up again. Because here's the truth that most founders don't really want to admit out loud. They don't feel overwhelmed because things are going wrong. They feel overwhelmed because things are actually working, but they're still saying yes to everything that comes their way. And today, I want to talk to you about why learning to say no is one of the most important leadership shifts you will ever make in your business, and why this has nothing to do with being unavailable, rigid, or difficult. It has everything to do with growth, scale, and long-term sustainability. Welcome back to the COO Solution Podcast. I'm your host, Derek Fredrickson, and this show is for founders and business owners building real businesses with teams, complexity, and momentum, and who are starting to realize that the way they've been operating simply doesn't scale anymore. At the COO Solution, we work with leaders, founders, CEOs who are capable, driven, and deeply committed to what they're building. These are not lazy founders or people avoiding responsibility. These are people who care, but often too much, and who are caring far more than they should. One of the biggest reasons that happens is simple. They haven't learned how or even when to say no. I want to start by honoring something really important. Saying yes is what built your business. You said yes before you knew how you would resolve this. You said yes before the systems were in place. You said yes when there was no one else to delegate to, no playbook to follow, and no safety net underneath you. And that mindset is really powerful. It creates momentum. It builds resilience. It's what allows businesses to survive the early years. But survival mode actually becomes a liability, because the same behaviors that helped you grow in the beginning, being available, responsive, flexible, and willing to jump in anywhere, quietly become the reason everything still depends on you. And at a certain stage, saying yes stops being a strength. It becomes a reflex. And reflexive leadership doesn't scale. Here's the thing. When everything remains a yes, your time becomes fragmented. Your attention gets pulled into too many directions, and your role slowly shifts from strategic leadership into constant reaction. You spend more time answering questions than setting direction, more time approving decisions than shaping real outcomes, and more time managing today than actually focusing on building tomorrow. And none of this is because you're failing as a leader. It's because your business has grown, but your boundaries haven't grown with it. Growth without boundaries doesn't create freedom, it creates dependency. There's a moment every founder reaches where effort is no longer the problem. You're working hard, you're showing up, you're doing what it takes, you're doing what's required. The real issue becomes clarity, and clarity requires space. This is the shift that most founders resist, even though It's the one that matters the most. Saying yes is what got you here. Saying no is what gets you there. Not because you care less, but because you're finally choosing where your leadership actually matters. Scaling isn't about doing more things well. It's about doing fewer things intentionally. And that means deciding consciously what you will no longer do. This is where the role of a COO, Chief Operating Officer, becomes truly transformational. Many founders believe they need to be the ones saying no. And they hate that role. They don't like saying no. They don't want to disappoint people. They don't want to slow momentum. They don't want to feel like the bottleneck or the bad guy. But here's the nuance most people miss. A COO doesn't exist to shut ideas down. A COO exists to translate possibility into priority. They're the ones who can say yes thoughtfully. Yes, we can do this, and here's what it's going to take. Yes, we can explore this, but maybe not right now. And yes, that's aligned with what we're doing, and here's how it fits with what we've already committed to. And sometimes they do say no, not emotionally or defensively, but strategically. We're not doing this right now because it pulls our focus from what actually moves the business forward. That's not resistance, that's leadership. And in many businesses, the COO becomes the operational boundary, the person who protects the founder's time, energy, focus, and effort so that you can stay in your highest value role. In other words, the COO becomes the solution for your no. And here's something that surprises many founders. When you start saying no to the wrong things, bigger opportunities tend to show up. That's because space creates perspective. When you're no longer buried in approvals and meetings and follow-ups, you start seeing patterns again. You notice where the business is actually constrained, and you make decisions that move the company forward instead of just keeping it running. Scaling isn't about squeezing more into your days. That's not going to happen. It's clearing enough space to think at the level your business now requires. And that only happens when you stop saying yes to everything that feels urgent and start protecting what is truly important. We see this pattern all the time with our clients here at the COO Solution. They come to us exhausted, deflated, not because they lack capability, but because they lack containment. Everything is open-ended. Everything is negotiable. Everything routes back to them. Once real operational leadership is in place with a true second in command, someone owning prioritization, sequencing, and follow-through, the pressure starts to lift. Decisions don't disappear. They simply stop landing on the founder's desk every single day. And that's when leadership finally shifts from reaction to intention. So let's be clear. Saying no isn't about pulling away from your business. It's about stepping into it differently. It's about deciding what deserves your energy and what doesn't. Boundaries aren't walls, they're structure. And structure is what allows growth and scale without burnout. Here's the question I want you to reflect on after watching this episode. I hope it resonated for you. Where are you still saying yes out of habit, obligation, rather than strategy? And what would be possible if someone else could hold the operational yes for you? At the COO Solution, this is exactly the work we do with our clients. We help founders build leadership structures that protect their time, sharpen their focus, and enable the business to scale without relying on them. And if this resonated for you, head to thecoosolution.com and maybe book a call. We'll have an honest conversation about where your boundaries are breaking down and whether a fractional COO is perhaps the right next best step for you. I want to thank you for spending this time with me today. I hope you enjoyed this lesson and strategy. If you know another founder or business owner who feels stretched too thin, maybe saying yes too many times, but doesn't know how to step back, share this episode with them, because no one builds a business to be consumed by it. And sometimes the most powerful leadership move you can make isn't doing more, it's actually doing less. It's deciding what you're finally willing to say no to. I'm Derek Fredrickson, and this is the COO Solution Podcast, and I'll see you next time. And that's a wrap on this episode of the COO Solution Podcast. If you found today's conversation valuable, I'd love it if you could subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who's ready to get control of their business and scale it with a second in command that they trust to handle all the daily tasks and operations they don't enjoy. And hey, maybe you're wondering if now is the time to bring on a trusted fractional COO or Chief Operating Officer to help your thriving business scale with clarity and confidence. If you're tired of doing it alone, visit thecoosolution.com and take our free quiz to help determine if now is the right time to bring a fractional COO to help you scale. In just 25 questions, you'll get a personalized report that helps you decide if your business is ready for the game-changing support of a part-time fractional COO. Let's find out together if it's your next step. Thanks for tuning in, and until next time, let's roll up our sleeves and get to work.